Hello, everyone, and welcome to Elseworlds Exchange. I am Sal.
And I'm Joel.
Yeah, we're talking today about comic book adaptations because I read some news yesterday regarding the Walking Dead premiere, and it blew my mind what kind of outrage we were experiencing given the lead time we had for what was happening in the episode.
You're gonna have to explain this to me because as we were talking before we started, I have this kind of blind spot when it comes to The Walking Dead. I stopped watching the show because I thought it sucked too much, and I stopped reading the comic because I was getting too depressed about it. Love the games though.
It's a terrible comic book. I hate The Walking Dead. I think that it's meandering. I think the characters are overly simplified or unnecessarily detailed. I don't think there's a Bible or a plan in place. There is no rudder for that comic. And while that's a fun experiment, I don't think that makes for good storytelling. And I put myself to task by reading the first 90 issues of The Walking Dead by being like, fuck it, I'm gonna read the whole goddamn thing up until a certain point. And I got to the certain point and I went, that's the end of that. And I just stopped.
I liked it quite a bit when it started. I'm just like, man, this is cool zombie fiction. Because, it got big at, the height of zombie fiction when it was in. And, and even I couldn't get enough at a certain point. But then it really did hit me. I'm like, wow, this is an endless parade of misery. Emphasis on the endless because the show has gotten popular now. Kirkman's never going to end this, will he?
No. I mean, he will. No, there's no question that Kirkman will end it. It's just that he doesn't know how to, and he doesn't have any plan for one.
He probably would have ended it before now, were it not for the popularity of the show, I'm
no
sure.
Question. I mean, it's just such a big check. The other thing is, I mean, there was a huge time jump recently, within the couple of years, where they were like, let's do 5 years later, because he'd written himself
some Naruto shit.
He had written himself into such a corner. He was like, I'm going to have to jump ahead. And damn, who cares? But anyway, the outrage is that the season finale ended with Negan. What an interesting and fun and compelling character he is. Bash someone's brains in with a bat. And,
but we didn't know who, right?
And everyone who didn't read the comic book didn't know who it was. And in the show, they did a bait and switch, where he beat someone to death, and it wasn't the person you expected, and then he beat the person that you were expecting to death with the bat after that. And everyone went, boo! Because not only was it a bait and switch, but it also was the bad decision that they pulled in the comic book that nobody liked and caused a lot of people to leave. And that was, and that's what happened. And I'm reading, Variety, I'm reading Vogue, I'm reading USA Today, and they're all
the big ones.
They're all just shitting themselves over the fact that that they did this. That number one, they killed the most compelling character in the show. Number two, that they that they would dare to trick you into thinking that they weren't going to do it and then did it anyway. And it's like, fuck you. That's what they do.
I feel even better now that I dropped out of this show when I did, and never looked back.
Yeah, I didn't get into the show because I was like, well, if the show is... They're like, no, the show is just like the comic book. I'm like, oh, cool, then I know I don't have no interest in it.
The first season is just like it until the last couple episodes where they go off script and then never come back.
Yes, but it sounds like they're getting back on book, as it were, with this. But the fact is, this is a comic book adaptation. This is in its most flashy, world attention-grabbing form. And it's funny how, comic book adaptations are held to such weird standards. It depends on what era it takes place in, for whom it is marketed, and how well executed it is, and what kind of secret it is being kept, whether it actually is an adaptation or not. All of those factors will determine the success or the failure or the middle ranging of a comic book adaptation. It's just funny how it's like, here's Walking Dead, and people are like, I love it, it's a brilliant comic adaptation, until it does something that is just like the comics that you don't like. And then all of a sudden it's garbage, and it's just funny how that turns out.
But what about Durl, Sal? Is Durl okay?
Oh, God. Who's not in the comic?
No, people forget that. He is an original creation. And talk about a character who has the greatest insurance policy ever of being popular, so they'll never die.
Yeah. No, they'll kill him just to spike ratings. I mean, like, he is their guaranteed next season kill.
Oh, yeah.
For me, it's like, yeah.
Even when I was watching the show, and I'm like, man, nice to see Norman Reedus getting some work.
Yeah.
And then to see Durrell slowly but surely become the Poochie of his own show. Look, when Durrell's not around, everyone needs to ask, where's Durrell? Next season, Durrell needs to be louder, more in your face, and have access to a time machine.
That's right. He might as well.
He literally became that guy.
Yeah, he basically is Poochie. But it made me think about like all the comic book adaptations that are out there and kind of like the approach, and like, so I thought we'd look at a few, not all of them because there are so many.
We would be here all day.
Exactly. But let's look at just a few, like, just a sampling throughout the years.
Let's ask this before we go any further. What, in your mind, constitutes an adaptation, and what's just picking and choosing ideas from source material?
For me, a comic book adaptation is you take the source material is from a comic book. It's from an established property, and you are legitimately adapting it and bringing it to life on the screen. I liken it to the best screenplay adaptation Oscar category, in that we took this pre-existing thing and then we made it as much as possible for this other format. Now, all the things that work or are intrinsically tied in with literature, or specifically with comics, we can't always do that. It's why Watchmen was considered to be unfilmable for such a long time. And for some, still is considered to be unfilmable. But, like, the fact that Watchmen is a comic book and it capitalizes on comic book isms and the medium itself in order to succeed, we're going to have to change some of those things in order to make it transferred into movies or television. That's fine as long as you preserve the integrity of the original artifact.
Right.
So yeah, I think like whatever the criteria is for best screenplay adaptation, I think is an adaptation. Like Batman 1966, the TV show. But it's more or less a straight up adaptation.
It's indicative of what was in the comics at the time.
Well, not that time. At that time, Neil Adams was starting to gain his footing, and it was like Batman was more serious and cooler than that show in the time it came from. But it picked a point where Batman, for them, stopped. Like Batman was grim and serious, and he was born from tragedy. And I think the first episode of the Batman 66 show, they established that Bruce Wayne is an orphan who is avenging the death of his parents. So
I watched that first episode just recently because they put them all up on Netflix, and my dad was over, and my dad loves that version. Man, that first episode is shockingly kind of serious because like a young girl dies on, Adam West Batman's watch, and he ends the episode like looking all sad, being like, "Yes, Robin, we saved the day. Oh, but of the life I could have saved." And I'm like, shit, they never got this serious again.
That's legit. Like, that's Batman. But, and that's pretty in keeping with the character. But then later, they get to, Batman in space and Batman 2 and Robin 2 and Kathy Kane and all these other bullshit. And when I say bullshit, I mean golden age hilarity. And the show takes a hard left into something else.
Oh, yes.
And it winds up influencing the brand for the next forever. But that said, I think that Batman 66, it was it's not the first, but it's certainly for a lot of people, their first exposure to Batman. And it's a pretty self-explanatory adaptation.
It informed a generation for better or worse.
Yeah, and they drew from the material. It wasn't like they just started they did make up a couple of villains, but they didn't just...
In the third season, once they used up all the ones people knew, it was all made up villains for season 3.
But they did start with the real villains, and they kept them. It wasn't like they went, okay, well, we don't have to do Joker anymore. That's stupid. Like, they used Joker, Catwoman, Penguin, Riddler, Clock King. Like, they used them all. And you're like, okay, cool. Like, you're using his villains. He is a detective. Like, on paper, Batman 66 is a pretty solid adaptation. Batman is born from tragedy. He has a young ward named Robin, who is also born from tragedy. The two of them put on colorful costumes and fight villains. Here's the names of all the villains. They have a Batmobile, they have a Bat Cave, they have Bat shark repellent. It's all pretty much within the confines of an adaptation, even though it is a grotesque, like, kiddie version of what we know Batman to be.
Well, we say it's a kiddie version, yet wasn't that like prime time back in the day?
Oh no, it was for yeah, I say it's for kids because, I mean, like, God in heaven, look at that show. But yeah, it was on during prime time. When I was a kid, it was on during the day.
Yep, same.
So, you know, by the time it came out in the much later years, you know, the 90s and such, when they started rebroadcasting it again, they knew what the demo was.
Oh, yes.
It was, and actually it's funny because it actually, I think it recaptured the old demographic too. It's like we captured a whole new group of kids that didn't have any experience with Batman, unless it was 1989's Batman, which is another adaptation that's kind of like, that's like, again, on paper, pretty much Batman. Every movie version of Batman is almost not quite a literal adaptation of Batman.
It's true. They pick up the weird idiosyncrasies of like whoever directs them. Like, especially in the sequel.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know, Batman Returns, there is just pure Burtonism through the lens of Batman. Dark Knight is pure Nolanism through the lens of Batman, etc., etc.
I would say that Dark Knight Rises is more indicative of Christopher Nolan. Like, Dark Knight is a good Nolan movie, but Dark Knight Rises is like, Nolan wanted to do a movie about, like, a city under siege. Like,
he likes that.
He wanted to do this, and he couched it in Batman stuff, which is why Batman's not in the movie.
For a good chunk of it.
Yeah. But then, of course, you look at the Chris Reeve Superman movie, which is another odd adaptation. It uses the Moses story, at least, you know, like the doomed boy rocket ship kind of couple. We got all the first if you cut out all the Jor-El stuff, the first 40 minutes is pretty Superman.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
But the crystals, the Lex Luthor, the schemer from Shining Time Station character, and the you know, all this other random stuff about Krypton is kind of just Dick Donner fucking around.
Yeah.
But you know, it was enough. Like the suit, right on.
Oh, definitely. The curl, all the other stuff. What I like about the Chris Reeve Superman movie is how it's funny how you can see how they kind of Frankensteined all these different genres of movies and made it work. Where it's like you got Flash Gordon science fiction, you got Screwball in the City comedy with Lois and Clark working at the paper and everything. You got like Dust Bowl, Ma and Pa Kent out there on the farm. And yet they make it all work, and it all fits together like this puzzle, like it was always meant to.
Well, that's where I think that comic books, if they are in their purest form, work a la Shakespeare, where you can set it at any time period, and you can set it in any location, as long as it mirrors all the things that work. You know, like Batman being an orphaned boy born from crime, those are things that you could have Batman in Greco-Roman times.
Yeah.
You could have Batman in the far-flung future. It doesn't matter.
Which we have.
You know, it all works. And Superman's one of those things where it's like, as long as I get all the tenets right of the character, then I can take some leeways here. What's interesting, of course, is that, like, both the 66 version of Batman, the movie version in 89 Batman, the Chris Reeve Superman, all of those more outward, larger-than-life, multi-billion-dollar media versions of the characters influence the comic books.
Oh yeah.
In turn, so it's kind of funny. Another, like, what other adaptations do you have where you're like, okay, this is a comic book adaptation? Because I got a couple where it's like, this is a comic book adaptation, and it's in its purest form, but they kept it kind of under wraps. Like, they didn't advertise it back then because it wasn't hip to do so. Like Road to Perdition.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Road to Perdition, that's definitely on my list. The Crow, which we've talked about many times before.
The Crow, literally, like, everybody who enjoyed it, I guarantee you, most people who loved The Crow never read a single comic book in their life.
Oh, of course not.
They were just like, no, I'm just feeling blue, and I love ripped jeans.
And that soundtrack is fucking baller.
Yeah, it is. No, it's...
Two, in that same vein, Men in Black. That's another one people don't know is based on a comic.
Yep. History of Violence, Men in Black, Roach all these movies that they kind of kept quiet. The only time you knew was Ghost World. They keep them quiet until the opening credits where it says, like, based on a Malibu comic. And you're like,
huh.
Did I just catch something here? We already saw Talk with the Crow. But what was the other thing? Roach was funny. That movie was so perfect.
Sure was.
It was unbelievably cast. It was unbelievably, impeccably shot. That was the last movie for Conrad L. Hall, which is a beautiful and perfect cinematographer. Paul Newman's one of his last movies, not his last movie, I think, but is one of his last movies, if not his last movie.
Tom Hanks kind of playing a bad guy, which you never really see.
No, it's true. What's his name? Bond. Daniel Craig is great, doing a little American accent. It's just haunting. That kid who played the son is great in it. They're fantastic. And great score, it's everything. And yet they were, that studio was like, don't let anyone find out that this is a comic book, or they won't take it seriously.
It's a prestige picture.
Yeah, there's a real picture here we're doing here, folks. No. Comic book movies look like that Stallone picture where he has all that hockey gear on. You know, the one I'm talking about. The one about the law. That one. Judge Dredd. Tank Girl. The Phantom. Yeah. These are comic book movie adaptations, which, hilariously enough, are pretty literal. The Phantom, pretty literal adaptation of the Phantom.
Yeah, really.
I posit that the Phantom just kind of sucks. And that's why it didn't work out.
That's why it's not good.
The Phantom's just kind of a boring character in the scope of everything else. Like, so what are your powers? I don't have any.
I am the ghost that walked.
Yeah.
That's my power.
What the fuck does that mean? It means that my dad gets busy. It means that all of us have to have sex at some point in our, like, late 20s. Wow.
Talk about another hero that they eventually put in the far-flung future. Do you remember, like, they did the Phantom 2049? Oh, that one. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That was my first exposure to the Phantom.
Oh, same.
Which is why Billy Zane's The Phantom was such a joke. Because I'm watching the Phantom 2040, which is like a Boy Aeon Flux show, and suddenly this crappy movie that looks like Joel Schumacher was just trying things. It wasn't him, by the way. I'm just saying, I'm making a joke. I'm likening it to those terrible Joel Schumacher Batman movies. It just looks so terrible. And it was like, no, if you want to see the Phantom, you got to watch Phantom 2040. That's some serious heavy shit. But yeah, but there's some. It's just funny how it's like, if they wanted to make a serious picture, they had to hide the fact its origins.
Oh yeah, that was a big thing for a long time. You know, movies embarrassed of their comic book roots, and I think it's something we're really only starting to overcome in this day and age.
I would almost say that we're swinging in the other direction. It's like what was it? I remember Steve Niles created 30 Days of Night because he wanted to do a movie of 30 Days of Night, and nobody bought the movie, so then he made a comic book. It's how Cowboys and Aliens got made, by the way. Same exact thing. Just, by the way, Cowboys and Aliens more nefarious and bigger horse shit. But
indeed. I like 30 Days of Night.
But 30 Days of Night, I think it's, one, a better comic, which is ironic, and two, it has glimmers of great ideas. Once those fucking vampires start talking...
No, God, no.
That's fine. But when they start speaking their silly moon language, it's like, all bets are off now. I don't give a fuck about you stupid, crappy vampires. First of all,
moon people.
They're there to eat people, right? They're there to, like, feed for months.
Eat everybody.
But they ate everybody within the first 12 hours.
What do we do now?
Fucking
cheesy.
Why would they do that? Why wouldn't they just show up any day? Why would they need the 30 Days of Night? It killed everyone within a day.
They were better than they thought. They underestimated.
Yeah, I guess because they're just so efficient at killing people as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And then they spent 29 more days hunting down 4 people? Are you fucking kidding me? If I were a vampire, I'd be like, I'd be pretending to be the grocery store manager. Like, I'd have full run of this crappy bullshit cold town. No, I gotta pretend. Those vampires, man, with their stupid Matrix jackets and their boat.
I love
30
they
Days
look
of
like
Night.
weird Euro trash. Did you ever see the sequel? I never saw the
No.
sequel. No,
But you know
who
what's
wants
funny?
to see the sequel? You got it done in the first one.
And there's like but what's hilarious is there's like 1,000 30 Days of Night sequels in the comics.
Really?
Oh yeah.
I did not know that.
Oh no, the sequel is the lady who survives tries to, like, she creates an advocacy group that try to raise awareness about the existence of vampires. And vampires like go and like give her and like try to rattle her into shutting up. Like they go to her rallies and like, oh, we're gonna kill you if as long as the sun doesn't come out. And like, fucking no.
That sounds not great.
Yeah, but like then you look at but anyway, my point about 30 Days a Night was simply that if he had just wanted to sell 30 Days a Night as a script, he would have had zero control. He would have had zero influence. It would have been completely changed. The ending would have been different. It wouldn't have been as grotesque and horror-inducing. It would have just been a weird, stupid movie that would have been forgotten. Right. But because it came out during the big boom and the big like studio gobbling up, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, believe it or not, actually kind of covers this pretty well, where all these studios are like, oh my god, Spider-Man did well, get me everything. And all
every
these properties,
comic book related thing.
Yeah, just
I don't care what it is.
Up. You got a big budget Green Hornet movie somehow. Like, this came out of that. No one likes it, except for that amazing James Franco scene in the beginning. But
not even Seth Rogen likes that movie.
Yeah, because he made that movie. That's his movie.
Seth Rogen openly mocks that in This Is the End.
Good.
What a bad idea that was.
Yeah. But that said, because of that climate in the movie industry, 30 Days of Night was suddenly, it was cool to be a comic book adaptation. And so they gave Steve Niles even more creative control than he ever would have if he had just gotten what he wanted in the first place. And I would argue that was probably not a good idea. And it's funny how you look at these kinds of things. Like, by the way, we talked about Tim Miller and Deadpool and leaving Deadpool and everything.
Ugh, so sad.
It turns out that Tim Miller was gonna fuck it up.
Really?
The rumor is this is unsubstantiated. This isn't necessarily substantiated, but the fact is apparently that now that Tim Miller got the bug for major success, he wanted to make the movie even bigger and more expensive and use more Hollywood tropes and starlets. Like, that's why he went for...
I heard the term more stylized, which could mean anything.
Who knows what that means? But, like, as I understand it, the way it was Tim Miller wanted to go bigger. And he wanted to go more Hollywood with it. And it's why he picked, like, that young dude to play Cable. It was indicative of a larger problem. That, like, Tim Miller... So he was
corrupted by success and money, is what you're saying.
That, like, the thing that we were really worried about happening really almost happened. Still could, because who knows who's gonna take over for Deadpool. But I'm just saying, like, it's funny how what happens when, you know, a little bit of success and a little bit of, like, notoriety comes your way, and how it could change the whole adaptation process. I mean, did you read that? I read that there's a petition to get Quentin Tarantino to direct Deadpool 2.
That's never gonna happen.
Never, ever
in a million years. That's cute that you think that would happen.
Yeah.
It's sorry. Cute that you think any internet petition actually gets things done.
Never gonna do anything for you. I'm sorry. But anyway, what's another adaptation that you're like, this is an adaptation? This is a good adaptation. What's a good adaptation for you?
You know what? This might be a bit of a blanket statement, but we're gonna get around to this anyway. All the Mark Millar Vaughn adaptations. Not only do I like them, in many ways, I think they're better than the books they're based on.
Wanted, you're talking about Kick-Ass.
Yep.
I definitely argue Kick-Ass 1 is better than the comic book.
Because they changed the ending and actually have it be, you know, a little bit more hopeful than the crushingly horrifying comic.
Kick-Ass 2 is a dumpster fire, but Kick-Ass 1 is pretty solid.
I kind of like the message of Kick-Ass 2, where they're like, look, you know what? It's not crazy to want to be a hero. It's crazy to not want to be a hero, especially right after Man of Steel in the same year. I'm like, wow, this movie is more hopeful and uplifting than Superman was.
That's true. That's true. My issue is with Kick-Ass 2, it was really spit polished, and everyone in it was kind of like going through the motions. Like, nobody really nailed their role. Even Chloe Grace Moretz wasn't really going for it the way people were like, this chick is going places.
Where the first one was kind of like punk rock in its weird way, where it's like, you know, wow, this movie almost didn't get made. Can you believe this movie got made at all?
Yeah, exactly. Whereas I'm like, yeah, no kidding. Sin City 2 is another dumpster fire, but
that I fully agree with. I saw that in theaters.
Me too.
My friend really wanted to go see it. It's to date the only movie I've ever seen in 3D too, because I live in small podunk Canadian nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
The only movie I ever saw in 3D, and I'm like, oh my god, you only did this to make the actual A Dame to Kill For. Why didn't Rodriguez just film this in his goddamn garage and re-release the first one?
That's a great idea. God damn it. Because the rest of it is just a waste.
So useless. They make you wait to get to the one story you want, the actual A Dame to Kill For, which, when they do get around to it, yeah, it's pretty good.
It's pretty good. It's okay. Until it isn't.
It's part of and because it's part of a bigger movie, it has no beginning and no end, and it's just like, well, this story is technically a prequel to what we saw in Sin City 1, so I already know how this is going to end. Dwight's going to be fine, Manoot's going to get his eye torn out, and that's how it's going to be.
Yeah. It was,
and then they wrote new shit for the end where it's like, hey guys, Frank Miller wrote some new stuff for it, and I'm like, no, God,
That's why I went. I was like,
to see the new shit.
I have to see how goddamn horrible it is, and boy did it deliver. Not as much as The Spirit did, though.
Ooh.
Now that's another one I saw in theaters. Me and 2 other people in the theater.
You poor bastard.
Oh, it was It was a romp. I bought it on Blu-ray when it came out. And by the way, when I say it came out, I mean like I bought it for $1 in the Blu-ray bin. Because I'm like, every once in a while I want to laugh. It's like the Room of superhero movies. The Spirit. Really is. And by the way, another example of that's not The Spirit. That is like, that takes ideas of what The Spirit is and then just fucks it.
Eisner is turning over in his grave somewhere.
I can't believe that was signed off on. Unbelievable.
Yeah. I'm the octopus. I got 8 of everything. Toilets are funny.
Oh my god. I got egg on my face.
Sam Jackson dressed as a Nazi because reasons.
Yeah.
He's just going for it in that. They're just like, look, Sam, we're going to turn you loose. You do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, and he knows. He knows how terrible it is. Because he's been in good things. He knows.
Yeah. I'm sure he knew by like day one, this movie sucks. I'm gonna go out there. I'm not gonna be acting, but I'm gonna be doing something.
Yeah, he went, holy shit. Now, I never watched Veronica Mars, but I assume that was a pretty decent adaptation.
I never watched it either.
No, okay, well, we'll talk about it. I will say that there are a bunch of shows that, are out now that are impeccable adaptations, but also some that are not so impeccable. If you were to compare the Netflix Marvel shows to Arrow.
Yes.
Which is ironic because Arrow has shades of the things you want. Full costume Deathstroke.
It's true.
He shoots arrows when he's not taking his shirt off. There's all kinds of great comic booky things in Arrow, just like in Gotham.
When he's not being poor man's Batman, and when Gotham is being Batman minus Batman.
Yeah, it's hilarious how boring Gotham is without Batman.
And yet how they keep trying to bend over backwards to try and give you the things you like without giving you Batman.
They really need to just end the show.
It was a bad idea. You should have just done GCPD, Gotham Central. You should have just done that show where Batman is alive and out there, but you never see him.
Nope. You never see him. That's all you need. You can cast Gordon, and that's it.
And Renee Montoya and Harvey Bullock. You could basically cast the whole show.
Yeah.
And then you just never see Batman, and you can have all the villains you want. You can do whatever, just never show them. Not only did Gotham fuck up in that, but Gotham is just a bad, poorly written show on top of that.
It's just garbage.
It's a hot dumpster fire. I don't know how far in you watched, but when they brought in Renee Montoya, said, oh, she was actually a former lover of Gordon's wife. I'm like, seriously? And then they show them drinking and doing pills because, that's the deviant gay lifestyle that we here at Fox know all about. And I'm like, you fuckers, you are awful. And they keep doing that with their women characters too, like Leslie Tompkins, who is younger and hotter and a love interest of Gordon in the show. She basically gets walked all over, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And the Riddler is a Big Bang character. He has undiagnosed Asperger's, like, clearly. and he kills the abusive lover of a woman he's really into, and she's like, "Oh, I love you now." And I'm like, "See, everyone, he won her as a prize because he killed that abusive thing."
Yeah,
remember that,
job.
kids. What terrible messages the show has.
Yeah, that show, yikes. They could have done GCPD. They could have done Wayne, where Bruce is just Kane from Kung Fu, going to different places, meeting people, getting into adventures, learning how to fight.
Would have loved that. That would have been fine.
All great ideas that cost way less than having to recreate the Arkham style gothic horror nature of Gotham. But whatever.
The design of the show looks great. I'll give it that much. Like, Gotham City itself looks really good. Arkham Asylum looks good. Some of the cosplays that they have in there look pretty good.
Yeah, that's true. Let's look at some other things. I understand that. Okay, so here's something funny. I thought Green Lantern was a pretty faithful adaptation.
I thought it was a dumb version of good stuff I liked. I saw the shades of the Jeff Johns stuff in there, but that's all it was, shades.
They used the framework and then made it. They either got afraid of the material itself, or they doubled down on it, because there's no reason to have Tomare in that movie. Like, there's no reason to have all of the core in that movie and for them all to be CG. And there was a lot of problems. But like the concept of Hal Jordan, the execution of the character was wrong. But like, if someone else in the role would have probably maybe not made it as much of a joke. I don't know. It was funny. I remember watching it and being like, this is kind of ballsy. Like, they're kind of really going all in on the Green Lantern mythos. But a dumbed down version of it. Yeah, but like, what was it? Like, on paper it works, but in execution it doesn't.
To me, it's like, hey, here's the lost planet of Riot. Here's a bunch of planets and names and stuff you recognize from the comics. We just kind of put it in a blender and threw it out there, but it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotham fans are giving me shit in the comment section. Yes, Bram, that happened later, though. There was still a whole bit of it with it sucking. I don't care how it ended. It was horrible for multiple episodes.
Yeah. Here's another adaptation that was horribly executed. X-Men Origins Wolverine. Because they had this problem where the X-Men universe was created during a time when it was shameful to read comic books. And yet, when X-Men Origins Wolverine came out, comics had become more mainstream. So they were starting to draw from the well there. So you had to be faithful to the Wolverine character they had developed that was not comic book Wolverine. But then they wanted to use the comic book Wolverine origin in that movie, but skip over all the best parts of the Wolverine origin in the opening credits. Yeah, just shove it in the opening credits and give it to the worst child actor you possibly could.
Never have I seen like a movie like skip past so hard the stuff I actually wanted to see. Yeah. I'm like, no, go back. No, stop going into the future. No, stop.
Yeah. No, it's true.
That was what I wanted to see back there.
Yeah, that montage where they're just like fighting in wars. I'm like, these are all cool things we could watch.
And these are your movies right here. Why are you skipping past it?
No, we got to get to the Blob boxing scene. We have to get to Gambit being a helicopter pilot.
We got to get to one of the Black Eyed Peas looking a lot like Wraith from the comics, actually. Yeah. Talk about a shockingly, weirdly accurate piece of casting.
Yeah. We gotta make the Origins line buried before we gotta all-star the Origins line as quickly as possible.
We gotta shoot you with an adamantium bullet, which is one of my favorite pieces of terrible. Put the genie back in the bottle.
It's unbelievable.
Well, how did he lose his memory? Adamantium bullet, I guess.
What does that even mean? Like, an adamantium bullet would just like technically that would just mean like either it's slightly stronger and so it would penetrate his skull, so you kill him. But no, it mucks with his memory. Like, fuck you.
I will say, though, the Wolverine was better. Obviously, they were taking some inspiration from like Frank Millar's Japan.
And Millar's version. I dug the shit out of the Wolverine.
Me too. I mean, it's like it reminded me of like, hey, let's make a late 80s Stallone Schwarzenegger picture,
Yeah.
but cast Wolverine, and I'm like, all right.
Yeah, I'm down. The only thing I had a problem with was how terrible that CG bear looked. I'm like, you couldn't just get a bear or a guy in a bear suit. When he kills the bear, it just has to be fur. You don't. It's so close up. You don't need to cut to nothing and put CG wet fur there. Just put a dude in a suit. It'll look better than a CG bear. I don't know why I have such a problem with that CG bear. I think it's because I know how much things cost, and so it's like, you could just make the claws look better if you just didn't waste your money in this CG bear.
That's movie making right there, spending your money on the wrong things.
It's really unbelievable. Like, we gotta have this scene. It's gonna cost $80 million, but I want to see a CG bear.
Gotta have
and by the way, what made it sad was, like, when it made it so frustrating was that scene is supposed to be sad and poignant, and I was like, this is rough. That poor bear. But it's so unbelievable that it's there at all that you can't get into it as much.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah.
Another sad thing about that movie is how they had the Wolverine costume at the end of it. You just never put it on, and they cut the scene of the movie of him opening it up and seeing the Wolverine costume.
I posit that he would look fucking dumb.
But he's got to wear it just once.
I don't want my characters to look dumb just because they wore the suit from the comic. I am a comic book fan. I love these comics. I prefer Wolverine in a costume. Sometimes, actually, no, you know what? With Wolverine, I don't actually give a shit. For me, Wolverine is Wolverine whether he's wearing a flannel jacket or a yellow spandex outfit.
To me, it's just like, Hugh Jackman has been Wolverine longer than we've had any Superman or any Batman. Just wear it once,
That's
damn
true.
it.
All right, I will. You know what? They need it to look good, though. They can't just make it and then be like, put it on. Oh, that looks real bad.
Did you ever think Ant-Man would look as good as he does? Did you ever think any of these other characters would look as good as they do?
Of course I thought Ant-Man was going to look good. Ant-Man was like the 9th movie in an 8-series success rate. Like, of course Ant-Man was going to work. It's just a helmet.
Yeah.
Like, I get that. I mean, and ironically, I think the Captain America movie version looks way better with no mask on, which is hilarious because I hate when superhero movies go, well, I always wear a mask, but I have to have a conversation where I convey emotion, and I'm also being paid a lot of money, and I want my fucking face in this picture. I'm looking at you, Tobey Maguire. Every opportunity he gets, he's like, okay, I'm everyone's hero right after I take off my mask, and no one will... I was just watching Spider-Man 2 the other day. I
was going to say, Amazing Spider-Man is much worse than that for Garfield constantly taking his mask off at every opportunity.
I think it's about on par. Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man literally has an entire fight with those crooks in the rain, inexplicably with no mask on, just so you can tell that either Tobey Maguire or his stuntman learned how to do all of those neat tricks. And by the way, when you watch them in the scope of 9 or 12 great Marvel movies, that scene is horribly choreographed. You see all of Sam Raimi's stitches in those movies.
We didn't know any better back then, man. It was
yes,
a simple, more innocent time.
You've made plenty of good superhero movies. Dredd's a great adaptation because Dredd is not a character. Like, I don't want to learn about Dredd's backstory or what the loves of Dredd. Dredd is a monster who fucking kills people. He is a force of nature and a reaction to like a cyberpunkian view of the world. That's cool.
He is that I will use fascism to fight crime type guy.
Yeah. I think Dredd is a perfect adaptation of Judge Dredd the comic. It's actually in many ways a little better. I like Dredd the movie more than I like reading Dredd comics. Dredd comics are a little too English for me, and I don't have any problem with the UK.
They're an acquired taste for sure.
Yeah, I have no problem with the UK and their influence and their culture. I love Shakespeare and all kinds of other delectable cultural niceties from that island, but there's something about I like my parody a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so cemented in a time that I'm like, I don't want to read that anymore. Like, I want to watch Dredd kick ass and be fascist, but I don't want to necessarily watch, I don't want to deal with, the politics of mutants.
It's true. There's a lot of undercurrents there that they could have gone within the movie, but they just gave us a cool action movie.
Yeah, and that's all I asked for is like basically a 1979 lost John Carpenter flick. I am so down.
And I mean, they do touch on it a little bit with the sidekick girl who is psychic and, who has all the other stuff. They touch on it just the right amount.
Just enough. That's why it's a perfect adaptation. It works so well, and it just works really well.
People keep bringing up Kingsman. That's another one there. Great adaptation from a thing people didn't know was a comic.
Yeah, another well-kept secret. Yeah, I dug Kingsman, I guess. It's weird. I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun watching that. But it's just kind of like, I don't know. A lot of people die in that movie.
They sure do.
And they play really fun, happy music with it.
They sure do. Again, was that a Millar thing too?
I think that's Mark Millar too.
That is a very Mark Millar thing there. That dude does not like people, it seems.
No, he doesn't. Somebody mentioned 300. I think that's a perfect adaptation of the book. Say what you will about its like historical inaccuracies or whatever. No shit. But it's painted beautifully, and and each frame of the movie is a almost identical shot, and it's a brilliant portrayal of that. It's really cool. Hellboy's another one. Great adaptation.
I weirdly like the sequel to 300 more because I actually felt there was more of a story there and some actual likable characters in that one.
See, that's the thing. Once you make it about people, then the world is stupid. Like
it really is.
You can't. You know what I mean? Like 300 is a painting come to life. I'm not there to like learn about Leonidas's fears. There's no
is
arc.
Funny that No, there really isn't. It is funny how that sequel more or less just shits all over the 300 Spartans, going like, wow, those guys were fucking dumb, weren't they?
Yeah, which is like...
They just stood there like idiots.
Like, fuck you, it's me... But yeah. With the show, it's funny how... Where we are with adaptations, where it's like... Now it's like, well, this is a comic book now. Like, they're doing... I mean, like, look at the Supergirl and Flash stuff. We're seeing... we saw that amazing cover image, that recreation, now that they cast Superman and Supergirl, from Crisis on Infinite Earths. Mm-hmm. If you told me 5 years ago that they were going to literally show you the cover image from Crisis in real pictorial form, I'd be like, no way.
And even on Flash in the previous season, they did the Flash of Two Earths.
Yeah,
they recreated that image as well.
Oh my god, yeah, no, that image of the two of them racing against each other is amazing. The fact they have Jay Garrick in the show is a testament to its ability to adapt.
And that their Jay Garrick is great, and that he's played by John Wesley Shipp, the dude from the '90s Flash show.
Yeah, and he's good. He does a nice job. He's fun to watch.
He does.
But it's funny how I'm like, I wonder if we're gonna swing too far in the other direction, where it's like, it's got to be like this. As I understand it, I remember Feige was being interviewed, and he was talking about some director that he wanted, and I don't remember who it was. I don't remember which movie it is. One of the upcoming movies. But they were like, we're looking for a director who will basically do what we ask him to do, because we basically have the movie already done. And we need them to facilitate the plan because it needs to fit into all these different places in order to like make the full picture come into view.
Part of a bigger puzzle.
Exactly. And what's blowing my mind is how like in comics they're like, well, just tell good stories and just put them out. I don't care. Whatever.
We'll figure it out later. We'll put it together later.
And in the movies, they're like, whoa. You can't just do that because it violates continuity.
It ruins our 7-year plan that we have for these franchises.
But yeah, like that's what editors in comics are supposed to be doing, conceivably. And yet they're doing it in these movies. And it's like, it's funny how the roles are reversing. They're like, whoa. Like you have somebody who actually gives a shit at the top level who says, hey, Spider-Man would never do that. As opposed to, when Batman indiscriminately murders people, and he does
with
it
guns.
In every movie. There's never a movie where Batman says, I can't kill anyone. Except for maybe the Batman movie starring Adam West.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. It's just kind of crazy. Like, yeah. We're in a weird place where adaptations
really
are celebrated, and every couple of weeks there's another holy shit.
It's true. Two great ones from the chat that we haven't mentioned yet. One, Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I know you're not the biggest Scott Pilgrim fan,
not,
Sal, you mentioned,
but I recognize what they're doing. The funny thing is, for me with Scott Pilgrim, okay, onomatopoeias are there to trick your brain into hearing a sound.
Yep.
That's why it's there. To put them in a movie with sound is weird. And I don't mean like it's weird, like you're so quirky, Edgar Wright. I mean like
he is. I mean
it's vexing because it demonstrates for me a fundamental misunderstanding of the purpose that onomatopoeias and comic book medium conventions serve. It's just, I think he had when people get punched, this is kablam. I think he's doing that because I think he thinks it looks really cool, not because he's trying to make you like feel like you're reading a comic book.
What's interesting about Scott Pilgrim is that like Brian Lee O'Malley, the creator, was involved in that every step of the way, which is kind of amazing because you don't see creator involvement on that level for the most part.
Yeah. No, that's true. Well, no, I feel like you're getting more of that now. Like I said, Steve Niles, Millar's working on those movies that he adapted. For the love of God, like look at those animated movie adaptations. I mean, DeMatteis has adapted a whole bunch of work from his fellow colleagues.
Definitely. I mean, that's almost like a whole episode in of itself. I would say those animated movies do the adaptations better than just about anyone else, due in part to the fact that they let the creators get involved.
Hell, I think I thought I saw Brubaker's name on Westworld yesterday.
Really?
And I was like, that's too specific a name. It's got to be Brubaker. And it's like, wow, they're like some of these key holders from the comic book kingdoms are breaking in and doing other things, and they're being kind of trusted with the kingdom. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, good for him. Another one that the chat was mentioning, it's one that I think has kind of already been forgotten, which is sad because it was very underrated and it died way too early. The Constantine show.
Oh, I feel so bad for that show because it's like that's the one they didn't bring back. They put him in. The one
they got right, too.
Yeah, they put him in the thing. Like, they put him on, what did they put him on, Arrow?
Yeah, he got one cameo after the fact, and it led to nothing.
Yeah, that sucks.
And Matt Ryan, he'll get back to do the voice in the Justice League Dark movie coming out, the animated one.
Whoop-de-doo. But yeah.
And that show, talk about a show that did everything right. He smoked. He was kind of a jerk ass. It was everything it needed to be. Chaz the cabbie was there. They mentioned Nergal. They basically said, hey, if you guys keep watching this show, we'll do Dangerous Habits. We'll do Garth Ennis, the one that you like.
Yeah.
Give us a season and we'll get to it.
No.
And they built up and they never did. They didn't get there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, you know what? That's proof that, we still have some work to do. I mean, the fact is, it was on the wrong network. It was
at
made
the wrong time.
It came out at the wrong time, wrong night, wrong time year-wise for it to come out. It was a bad scene all around. You look at that movie Constantine, and you ask about like faithful adaptations. I mean, like, he smokes like a chimney. In like a really in like a deliberately unhealthy way. Like, you're like, wow, that's a lot of smoking. Like, they really play up the whole the culture, the world, but it's Keanu Reeves.
Keanuing his way through this performance.
So it doesn't quite work. But there's a lot of cool stuff about that movie. It's just not a great adaptation. Like, or it's more of a reimagining than an adaptation.
Yeah,
oh
definitely.
Yeah, people are mentioning Preacher. I fucking hate that show. I think it's a horrible adaptation of the show.
I wasn't even going to mention Preacher to Sal because I didn't want to see his blood boil over.
I hate it. I think it's terrible.
I watched quite a bit of it, actually. I don't think I ever finished the season, but I actually watched a fair amount of it.
Yeah.
Mainly because I was watching with another person who had no like frame of reference for Preacher.
You need something. Like, you can't just
you
can't be like, here.
It was the funniest experiment. The reason I kept doing it was mainly because, every episode I'm like, did they just do the thing? And then they were filled with questions. I wish I filmed it because it was actually quite an interesting exchange, because they had the best question. They're like, what the hell's up with the cowboy we keep going back to? Why do they keep showing me the cowboy? And I'm like, that's the Saint of Killers.
Yeah.
He's actually really important. I don't know if we'll actually get to him or not by the time this is done.
Yeah. It's such a terrible show.
V for Vendetta, that's another interesting case, because, the V for Vendetta comic isn't really about V, it's about other people, and you see V through their eyes.
And V is not the hero in any way. He is not supposed to be admired or revered. I like the movie more than the comic book when it comes to V. I think the comic is a little self-indulgent. I think it's... I think it asks too many... I think it asks more questions than it seeks to answer. And the movie is an interesting adaptation of that work, where it tries to do something. It tries to tell a different sort of story. You can't just you could make V for Vendetta the comic book, but it would be like very dark, and it would be kind of like it would be more like the movie Pi, where it's like, why did you do that? At the end of the movie, you're just kind of like, what the fuck was that all about? Whereas like the Wachowskis are not in the business of making movies that have really, really limited appeal, despite the fact that they make movies that have really, really limited appeal.
Yeah.
Because
those
true. Matrix movies, I don't know who the fuck they're for. I think they're for the Wachowskis and no one else.
Or at least everyone after the first one.
Yeah, the first one's a perfect Campbellian recreation of the hero of a thousand faces. The second and third one are a desperate realigning of a direction. Stories, when you're a creator, or even if you're just a connoisseur of stories seem to have their own direction. You have people say like, a character. I didn't create a character, that I just gave the character words and they came to life. That kind of thing. Stories have a natural direction that they go in, and really, really creative people have the ability to kind of circumvent that or trick you into thinking that it's not going to do that, and then it does. Tarantino's really good at telling a story and making it look like it's gonna make it look like it's not following natural story conventions, but they actually do. The Wachowskis were just so desperate to tell some fucking thing that mattered to them really, really badly, that despite the natural direction that this story was going in, they were like, no! And they just pulled, it was like the ship was just leaning in the wind, and they went, no, fight the wind! And they did, and it went right into a storm. Because fucking, when you put agenda before creativity or before story, you will fail every time. It's like George Lucas was like, I want to tell a thing about this. I want to do something different. And it's like, Star Wars is just Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. All three movies are just one Joseph Campbell story.
Yeah. If
you want to do something different, you either have to tell a very different version of the story, or you have to be more creative to obfuscate the obviousness of it. What he did, there's no arc, there's no protagonist, he's doing something very different, and good for him. God bless him for wanting to be different and tell a very different thing. When I heard that, by the way, I remember him talking about, he's like, Disney wanted to tell like a retro movie, and I always wanted to do something different than what I did before. I admire that, but you're telling a story about characters in a fictional world you created to service the hero's journey. That's, all the other things that spun out of it are window dressing. But if you don't use the hero's journey, then you're lost.
Yeah.
But anyway.
The chat brought up an interesting one talking about Fables v Once Upon a Time as far as adaptation goes. For a second there, it seemed like they were going to make a Fables show. Then they're like, screw it, we'll just make our own.
Wasn't that literally, it was an adaptation of Fables, and then they didn't get the rights, or they didn't want to do it, and so they just went, just call it something else.
There was a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff there. Apparently they had the dude in, but they couldn't come to terms, and they're like, well, we're Disney. We'll just make a Disney version of it with all our characters then. Why not? We'll do it that way.
That's what they did.
Something that was actually a pretty good Fables adaptation. The Wolf Among Us, the Telltale video game, was a really strong adaptation, actually, of that world.
We didn't even talk about video game adaptations, and it's funny how, they also have the same level of like, those people got it right, those people got it wrong.
I think Telltale has the perfect what is it, kind of like trademark on these. All their adaptations so far have been great, from Game of Thrones to Walking Dead and everything in between.
Batman, Rocksteady also did a great adaptation of Batman and distilled that character in a really, really brilliant way.
It helped that they had Paul Dini helping out.
Yeah, I mean, well, and that's just because they wanted to tell the most authentic Batman story they could. They brought somebody who knew the character instead of being like, I got this.
Yeah.
It's really cool. I appreciate
Let's get a guy who knows his shit, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, have you seen The Tick on Amazon yet?
No. You dissuaded me from it.
Yeah, it's not great. It's not The Tick. It's something else. And I feel bad because Ben Edlund is such a great writer. He's such a great creative person, and I feel bad that he thinks he needs to keep making The Tick again.
You can do other stuff, dude.
Yeah, like he made The Tick as a comic book. It came out like once every year. It just took him forever to make that book, and then he got that unheard of cartoon deal where it was a perfect version of the show or of the character, and then he did that other show with Patrick Warburton that was just it again, but in a different format. And Amazon's Tick is just it again with a different format / approach. It's like each one is a snapshot of the time from which it came, except for the cartoon show, which I think is a little ahead of its time. But
it was parodying shit as it happened.
Exactly, it was unbelievable. But the new show is wow. Yeah, like here, Tick might not even be real. Yeah, fucking no. But yeah, it's weird. But anyway, it's funny and it's hilarious because that's an adaptation from the guy who made the damn thing.
Yeah, showing that even the creators sometimes misconstrue their own material.
Yeah. Joel, any other adaptations you want to like just give a quick shout out to, or any thoughts that you want to share that before we wrap up?
Oh, I feel like I'm missing so many.
I know, I feel like I am too. But it's because every comic book, movie, video game, show is, in essence, an adaptation, unless they decide to just take the name and then do whatever they wanted with it. And there's plenty of examples of that as well.
I quite like Sin City, the first one. You know, I know Rodriguez even got in trouble because instead of using storyboards, he just used panels from the comics, and that pissed off the storyboard union.
Yeah, you know, fuck them. Like that
fuck them storyboard guys.
Listen, F you. Like, the fact is, whenever I feel like getting back into making movies, I watch Sin City because it's such a great experience when you're watching, because it's a perfect adaptation of the comic, and it's also a great experience making movies. Like, anytime, if you ever think you want to make movies, get a whole bunch of early Rodriguez flicks, get them on DVD, and watch his behind the scenes and listen to his commentaries.
He's a real workman creator. Even on his DVDs, doesn't he have like his 5-minute film school where he's like, okay, and this is how you do movies?
Literally, his 5-minute film school and his audio commentaries are an entire semester of film school.
Yeah, they're a masterclass. They're great.
Yeah. Somebody mentioned The Max. The Max is, I wouldn't even call it an adaptation. It's literally the comic book come to life. Each episode is an issue of the book. They even got the darker image issue of The Max in the show.
Nice.
It's a perfect adaptation of The Max. It's not even an adaptation. It's literally just Sam Keith went, here's the comic. And
wow.
And it's funny, he was interviewed recently and said something to the effect of, they gave me more control than I probably had any business having. But yeah.
Talk about another weird adaptation, The Mask, which is a lot more mean-spirited.
That's another one where they were like, it's a comic, but don't tell anybody.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Mask is solid.
Yeah, I agree.
Does it hold up?
Yeah.
Kind of not. I will say...
I like the cartoon they made, and they made an Ace Ventura cartoon at the same time. Then they crossed over Ace Ventura and the Mask cartoon.
Yes, remember when Ace's butt became the mask?
I do remember that. That's a thing that happened.
That's a thing that happened. Damn it.
Also, the Spawn cartoon from HBO, that was a pretty good adaptation, maybe the best adaptation.
Yeah, it might be, because it just distilled all the things that work about Spawn. The only thing was, the animation is really not great. It tricks you, because it has these really cool noir-y moments. It's shit you never see in animation, but they reuse it, like the Spider-Man cartoon, and it's just like, damn it. It's also really slow. It's a very slow show. I was trying to watch it recently, and I'm like, this is and for no reason. Like, it was very slow.
It's slow, it's talky, and it also makes use of that, like, music video style editing.
Yes.
I have the first 3 seasons of that on Laserdisc somewhere.
Wow. I have my Laserdisc player in my attic.
As where it should be.
I have HBO on demand, and Spawn is on there too. I was like, wow, I could demand it any time. Or I could look it up on YouTube, because somebody put up all the shows. They
did. No one's chasing after that one for whatever reason.
I remember in an old Wizard magazine, they were plugging that Spawn show, like that Spawn show. McFarlane was developing it, and he got, like, because it was 1997 and it was like the year of Spawn, he was like tripping over studios trying to do the Spawn show, and there's a shot it's all darkness, and it's just McFarlane looking at a television, a big TV with an image of Spawn animated with his eyes glowing, and it says, the caption is like, McFarlane is reviewing a test piece of animation from a potential studio he ultimately rejected.
You know what's great about if you have those Laserdiscs, you actually get to listen to McFarlane's commentary on the Spawn thing.
That's awesome. Does it have all those awful intros where it goes, I'm Todd McFarlane, creator of Spawn, and he just like
yes it does. His own Tales from the Crypt sure does.
It's so fucking weird. Do I remember it correctly? Is he in like a stupid chair and it's like dumb? It's like looks like a set from Scare Tactics.
He's in a mausoleum. He's like in some weird mausoleum with a bunch of skulls and stuff. And he comes walking in. Hello, I'm Todd McFarlane. I want to show you something very terrifying.
His awful Canadian accent. I'm Todd McFarlane, creator of Spawn. I remember that's how he opened every single show. And of course, me being a child during that time being like, because like that's another thing. The only comic book creator that was in the public eye, that was allowed to be on television, movies, in your face, was Stan Lee. So Todd McFarlane, creator of Spawn, the only thing that rivaled that was Rob Liefeld being in a Levi's jeans commercial.
It's true to say that Todd McFarlane is the biggest fan and biggest promoter of Todd McFarlane.
No question. Todd McFarlane is the best Todd McFarlane salesman you'll ever see.
He is, and he's sold them pretty hard.
He's also great at buying balls.
That become worthless the next year.
Yeah, way to go, Todd.
McFarlane's not good with his own money, as history has shown.
No, although, I mean, like, he's still... Well, you know, that's a great question. You know, I don't know. Okay, if you ever pick up that issue of Spawn where he meets Cerberus, they do an image of Todd's house, and it's a fucking mansion.
Of course it is.
And I guarantee you it's a real adaptation of his house. I also guarantee you don't live in that house no more.
You know, here's the thing. We should make it a tie into Super Suits, the show I do on Nerdsync. We should do an episode on comic book lawsuits.
Oh, yeah.
There's some excellent ones I've researched.
Yeah.
Many of which star McFarlane in a main role.
That's the thing. I feel bad for McFarlane because the dude just wanted, like me, like to name some characters after people that he admired or was friends with, and they fucked him.
And they all took him to court, and most of them won.
Yeah, because he didn't think about that.
But then you hear about like the whole gaming thing, and you're like, okay, Todd, maybe you're not so cool.
Oh no, what you did with that was not cool.
I haven't covered that one yet because that's going to be like 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Because that's like years worth of material you got to dig through.
It's true.
And in the end, the Marvel Universe got Angela. And then what happened to Angela? Nothing really.
Oh, man. What a rich, great character who's been doing a lot of amazing things in Marvel now.
It's true.
She's not even a book.
Nope.
Got canceled.
Not even a mention, even though she's the sister now of Thor and Loki.
She's not even in a fucking, in Civil War 2.
Nope. She's off doing something. She's in hell. Wasn't she like Queen of Hell for a bit?
Yeah. I thought the book was just called Queen of Hell. I don't know if she even got a chance to become Queen of Hell yet. I think they just bent into the book. They're like,
was that only like 3 issues and they were done with it?
They were like, that's enough.
That's plenty.
They're like, that was
this experiment has gone on too long.
That was not worth the money.
But it was a nice little screw you to McFarlane putting her in our universe.
Remember when we all thought the Miracle Man was going to show up?
Oh, I remember that so hard.
Yep.
Wouldn't that have been something? Hey, everyone, it's me, Miracle Man.
Hey, watch me go the way of Century and be really important and then not.
Always Dark in the chat says apparently she was in Vote Loki, that series, before it ended.
Oh, okay. She was in a book that no one cared about or read and then got canceled.
That's right. I remembered the first issue of Vote Loki. Loki made her the head of his, like, presidential security team.
That's funny, I guess.
It's cute. She didn't have a line. She just looked grimacingly at people.
Aw.
Yeah.
Well,
Aw.
anyway, that's another episode of Elseworlds Exchange. Thanks so much for watching, gang. Listen, before you go, stick around because later tonight, our Halloween special is going to be launched. It's of back issues. It's just a Halloween episode, but definitely watch it because it's a lot of fun. Stay to the end. I know a lot of you guys who watch YouTube videos love to end when you think it's over. And that's why people always put a little extra at the end. It's bizarre from comic book fans who know to stay for the end of the credits because there's always going to be a little extra. There's always a little extra,
stinger.
And nobody stays. So stick around because it's a lot of fun. It's pretty great, and it'll be out around 8 o'clock p.m. our time, Eastern Standard Time. But Joel, what else is happening over on Caped Joel and for the rest of the week?
Well, if you check out over on my channel later tonight, I, of course, will have the new Detective Comics issue up there for review. It's the new kickoff to this storyline, The Victim Syndicate. We've got a whole new team of villains now to fight the Bat family, and even the return of some beloved Bat family members who we haven't seen in a long time. Quite a few show up, actually. I was surprised some of the deeper pulls they do.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it, everybody. So we'll see you guys next time on another episode of Elseworlds Exchange. Don't forget to check this out in audio format on iTunes or on SoundCloud. Just search for ComicPOP and or Elseworlds Exchange. You will find it. Subscribe, watch, and enjoy. And we'll see you guys next time with another episode. I am Sal, and this is Joel. Oh, sorry, I took it away.
That's all right. That's all right. You all know my name by now, or at least you should.
Y'all know him, and we'll see you guys next time. So thanks a lot for watching, gang. See ya.